back with our next class. In today's class, we are going to discuss another aspect of ecosystem, that is ecosystem structure. Okay, this is very important for your exam. Now see, you all of you know that a constant interaction between biotic and abiotic components gives rise to a functional unit, okay, where different species can survive, right? And that is what is called ecosystem, isn't it? So different types of ecosystems show different types of interaction between biotic and abiotic components, and hence they have or they originate some specific physical structures or features within them. So one ecosystem differs with another one by certain kind of physical features, okay, and that's what we're going to discuss today. These differences can be mainly seen in two aspects or 2 points, okay, that's what is mainly going to be discussed in today's class. So let's see what it is all about. See, interaction of biotic and abiotic components results in a physical structure that is characteristics for each type of ecosystem. Now, important structural features of the ecosystem includes, first, species composition. Now, in each ecosystem, different types of species may be present. Also, in certain ecosystems, species may be very high, okay, number of species, whereas in certain ecosystems, it may be very low. Okay, so that's how specifically structural features can be formed as per species composition. Okay, so see, it is identification and enumeration of plants and animal species of an ecosystem. For example, tropical rainforest is dense with a vast number of species, whereas vegetation is very sparse in desert ecosystem. So tropical rainforest, it has very high biodiversity, whereas if you talk about desert, it has very less of biodiversity. So species composition is varying from one ecosystem to another. Okay. Next point is stratification. So many times stratification has been asked in the questions, okay, in board exam. So stratification makes up a very important topic. Okay, so try to understand. See this, vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels. In any ecosystem, there are certain vertical distribution of species present, and that itself is termed as stratification. See, it is the structure as recognizable pattern in spatial arrangement of the members of the community. Now, this entire definition would be clear by a very simple example. See here. In a forest, following vertical subdivisions, that means in the stratification of forest usually would consist of 3 distinct layers. The top layer consists of trees, second layer would consist of shrubs, whereas the bottom layer would consist of grasses and herbs. So this vertical distribution is known as stratification. Understood this? Fine. Now let us discuss regarding ecosystem functions. Okay. See here, ecosystem possesses a natural tendency to persist, and this is made possible by a variety of functions performed by structural components which functions as a unit. So that means every ecosystem would want to persist continuously, and to do so there will be various functions that it has to be performing in the form of a unit. Okay. Now, there are certain key functional aspects present in every ecosystem, and they are productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling. To get an overview regarding all these functional aspects, I can give you an example of a small pond. Let's see what are the activities happening in a small pond. Okay, you know very well that a pond is a shallow water body, and in that pond there are various abiotic components already present, like water, which has its own organic and inorganic materials. Then there is soil in the bed of the pond, which also consists of various minerals, isn't it? Likewise, sunlight is falling on the pond. You have learned about lake zonation, isn't it? So sunlight is falling onto the pond. That is another important abiotic component, right? So these being the abiotic components, let's see what are the biotic components. The biotic components of the ponds again falls under three categories: producers, consumers, and of course decomposers. The producers present in the pond are of course the phytoplanktons, then there is algae and many other submerged plants. Okay. Coming to the consumers are the zooplanktons, then there are other certain bottom dwelling forms, etc. Alright. And last, the decomposers. There are various decomposers present in the form of bacteria, fungi, etc. So now you have a clear idea that in the pond, these and these are the abiotic component and these are the biotic components. Now let's see how would they interact. See, at first, by the help of minerals available in the soil and water and sunlight falling onto the pond, the autotrophs or the producers, they will undergo photosynthesis, right? So as they are conducting photosynthesis, they would be the first to convert inorganic substance into organic form, right? That is happening, right? So inorganic to organic is being converted due to photosynthesis, and this is what is the productivity, the first productivity. All right. Now next what would happen, you see. Next, this energy that has been entrapped by the producers, when the consumer will eat or feed upon the producer, that particular energy will be transferred to the consumers now, isn't it? Consumer feeding on the producer, now the energy would be passing on from the producer to the consumer, right? So energy flow is happening or not? So that's happening. This is another function, that is energy flow. At last, both producers and consumers would die, and their dead remains would be then, it would start getting decomposed by the decomposers, right? So that is again another functional aspect, that is decomposition happening. And finally, after decomposition, what would happen? All that organic matter that was present in the dead remains will be again converted to inorganic material, isn't it? It will be again given back to the pond, where nutrient cycling is happening, isn't it? Why? Because that inorganic material that has been now converted, it will be again used by the autotrophs for conducting photosynthesis and again giving rise to organic matter, isn't it? So how the changes are happening from inorganic to organic, and once the organisms will die, again from organic to inorganic, right? So that's what is nutrient cycling. Understood? So by the help of this example of a small pond, you can easily understand that in any kind of ecosystem, at every level, these four aspects or these four functions will always persist. Otherwise, the ecosystem cannot exist in nature. Understood this? All the four functional aspects of the ecosystem. Now, in our further discussion, we'll be discussing each of these key functional aspects in details. We'll be discussing each of them in details. This was just an overview. Clear? So let's read it out once. See, a pond is a shallow water body in which all the above mentioned four basic components of an ecosystem can be well exhibited. Like, the abiotic components are water with all dissolved inorganic and organic substances, and the rich soil deposit at the bottom of the pond. The solar input, the cycle of temperature, day length and other climatic conditions regulate the rate of function of the entire pond. Now this is the entire abiotic components that we are talking about. Next, the producers are phytoplanktons, algae and floating, submerged or marginal plants, which are usually found in the edges, whereas the consumers being the zooplanktons, free swimming and bottom dwelling forms, and finally the decomposers are fungi, bacteria, etc. So this is a list of biotic components. Alright. Now how they would interact? This system performs all the functions like conversion of inorganic to organic by the autotrophs, consumption of autotrophs by the heterotrophs, that was energy flow. Then decomposition and mineralization of the dead remains by the decomposers. That would allow decomposition and also of course neutron cycling, isn't it? To release them back for use by the autotrophs. Understood? Fine. In ecology, you need to keep the things simple. Try to keep it all clear. Otherwise, it is going to be very, very easy. Okay. So let's see the first aspect in details, that is productivity. Now regarding productivity. Okay. So see, it is the rate of biomass production. So when the plants would entrap the sunlight and would conduct photosynthesis, they would be giving rise to some organic matter, isn't it? So that is how we would be deciding the biomass production, and the rate at which biomass production would be occurring is known as productivity of any ecosystem. Amount of biomass produced by the producers of an ecosystem decides the productivity of such ecosystem. Understood? Now, there are two types of productivity, the primary and secondary productivity. Now see, there are two important points for you to remember here, that is most productive ecosystems are coral reefs, tropical rainforest and sugarcane fields, whereas least productive ecosystems would be desert due to lack of water and deep sea due to lack of light. Okay. Now, first let's see primary productivity. See, it is the rate at which biomass or organic matter is produced by the plants or producers during photosynthesis per unit area over a time period. That means total amount of organic matter that is formed by the plants by photosynthesis. That total amount itself will be known as primary productivity. Understood? Now, it is expressed in terms of weight as gram per meter square per year, or energy also, then we will use kilocalorie per meter square per year. Okay. Now, primary productivity can be again divided into two categories like gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. Now, suppose a plant has produced a particular amount of organic matter, total organic matter by photosynthesis. So, the total organic matter that has been formed, or the biomass that has been formed by the plant by photosynthesis, that is called gross primary productivity, GPP, the total amount. But then a part of that will be again used up by the plant for its own bodybuilding or for its own survival or not. So in that case, a lot of GPP or gross primary productivity of the plant will be lost during the plant's respiration also. So after respiratory loss, whatever will be left, that will be known as NPP, that is net primary productivity. Okay, total amount formed is GPP, and after being formed, obviously the plant will use it for its own survival. So after usage, whatever is left, that is NPP, as simple as that. Understood? So see, rate of production of organic matter by the producers per unit time and area is called GPP, and a considerable amount of GPP is used by the plants during respiration. So in that case, net primary productivity would be what? It would be GPP minus respiratory loss, which can be formulated as this: NPP is equal to GPP minus R, where R is respiratory loss. Understood? Fine. Next, let us discuss the factors that would be related or that will be affecting the primary productivity. Now see, these are the list of factors that would be affecting primary productivity, like photosynthetic capacity of the producers, that is the ability to utilize sunlight by any plant, solar radiations available, temperature, soil moisture and availability of nutrients. Now, you would be also surprised to know that the productivity of the biosphere, how it will be having a vast difference in the terrestrial and the aquatic ecosystem. See, the annual net primary productivity of the whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion tons. Do remember this, mass, okay, 170 billion tons. That is the dry weight of organic matter. Of these, despite occupying about 70% of the total surface of Earth, the productivity of ocean is only 55 billion tons, whereas for terrestrial ecosystem it is 115 billion tons. Isn't that surprising? And there is also a very valid reason why in the oceans, despite having much more surface than the terrestrial ecosystem, why oceans would lack so much in the NPP. There are mainly two reasons of low productivity in the ocean. First is light. As you know already, light, the amount of light would keep decreasing with depth in the ocean. Also, nutrients. The most limiting nutrient would be nitrogen. So it is basically due to the lack of light and nitrogen that the oceans would be so much lagging behind in the NPP in comparison to the terrestrial ecosystems. Last thing that we discuss under this topic would be secondary productivity. Now see, if I told you that primary productivity means the amount of biomass or organic matter that is produced by the plants. So of course then secondary productivity means the rate of formation of new organic matter by the consumers. That means the heterotrophs. Alright. So in that case, you can see that it is the secondary productivity means the quantity of new tissues that are created by assimilation of food by the heterotrophs. That is what is secondary productivity. Understood? So I think all the aspects related to productivity are clear to you. So this much for today's class. In the next class, we'll start with decomposition.